quit teaching 2 years ago to do some citizen diplomacy work with the Soviet Union. And I want to tell you a little background on the visit of Hassan and Slava here to your city. Our organization, which grew out of a visit to the Soviet Union in 1983, a visit of people, friends of mine, who went over there to see if this was really an evil empire that we heard so much about. We wanted to meet the people, and get into their homes, and talk to people on the metro, and get into schools like this one. And this is what we did. And since then, we have taken hundreds of Americans to the Soviet Union. This year, incidentally, I'm taking a group of people your age to the Soviet Union in July of this year. We're going to be staying at youth hostels in 3 cities, and we will be served by Soviet young people your age. Now, this year, we have a special project of bringing 400 Soviet people to the United States, 20 at a time, and each group of 20 is divided into a group of 4. These 2 Soviet men are part of a group of 4 who are visiting your city. The reason I'm telling you this is to show you that ordinary people can do a whole lot to change the world situation.
Speaks excellent English. Hassan is working on his. And if you want to direct questions to Hassan, they'll probably have to go to Slava, the taller gentleman, as we indicated here. I guess maybe one of the first things we might ask is that there are millions of Americans who are curious about the Soviet Union, and they would love to go there. If the government were to select them, they'd like to go.
Well, okay, so I'll start for myself first of all. Well, actually, I came to the USA. Well, quite by chance, was lucky to work with a group who was traveling in the USSR, and I didn't expect to be chosen for that trip, but suddenly February I learned about that I was invited to become a member of the delegation that was supposed to visit the USA in April, and so that's how I got here. So in fact, I came here on an invitation, in a way, of the group I worked with.
I'd like to add just a little bit to that. I mentioned to you that we're hosting 400 Soviets. The Soviet Peace Committee has agreed that we ask for, that we request half of the people who come. We've also requested that they be a certain age that they would not have traveled here before. Slav is one of the ones who was an in-tourist guide for our group that was there last summer, right? Or
Right.
was it last
October.
And so we requested that he come. Sometimes you get the idea, well, they only send the people they want to send. And that's not true.
Okay, you know that Hassan is from an area which is an autonomous republic of the Soviet Union, which is called Kabardino-Balkar. This is an area which is situated in between, well, geographically, between the Caspian Sea, the Caspian Lake, and the Black Sea, as the Caucasus. And, this autonomous republic got the information that a group of Soviet citizens would visit the USA in April, and they were offered to choose a person who would go on such a trip. And so Hassan was chosen and became the member of the group. Show how he appears here. Please.
Before you came to the United States, did you have, and now that you've been here, do you have different impressions of how the United States is from your personal standpoint?
Да, надо сказать, что наш приезд сюда, он немного изменил наше представление о Соединенных Штатах и о его людях.
Well, we should of course admit that our coming here changed our impressions and our opinion about the country and the people.
Мы поражены и удовлетворены гостеприимством американских людей, вниманием к нам и стремлением к миру.
We are amazed and satisfied by hospitality of American people and by their interest in good connections with our country and with their desire for peace, strong desire for peace.
Скажи, что я был уже в Омутине в школе. Там дети, начиная с 3-го, даже 2-го класса маленькие, они нас забросали вопросами. Мы еле от них уходили. Такие маленькие детишки.
Well, my son visited the school in Lawton, and so they had a meeting with their the second and third grade pupils, and they asked so many questions that they could hardly leave the school at all. Well, this is the Hassan's opinion. As for me, then I had really more opportunities to meet American people, and of course I've heard much about your country, about the way you live here. But anyway, of course, we have such a saying in Russia: it's better to see once than to hear 100 times, and that's the truth. Well, it is true, of course, and I've come here, and I really enjoy staying here. Though it's my first day. See, you are actually one of the first Americans that I see during this trip. I haven't seen too many of them yet. First school I visit.
Do you feel that in the Soviet Union there is just as strong as a want for peace as there is in the United States? Can you see that in both countries?
Yeah, probably I'll answer that question. You know that the Soviet people, citizens of the USSR, they want peace, and they are very sincere in that. And their wish, their desire for peace is also very, very strong. And in many ways, the reason for that is a recent war. You know that the country suffered much during the last war, lost 20 million people during it. And many of the people who survived the war, they're still living. They have their own families, of course. And every family in our country lost a member. And you see, that's why we don't want such a thing to be repeated. Well, anyway.
Надо вот им сказать, что главное, что оба народа, особенно наша молодежь, они вместе, совместно способствовали делу мира. И будущее это за молодежью, ей хочу в мире.
Well, I think Hassan wants to say that the future is in your hands, in the hands of you. Exactly. And so, much will depend on you. So it is necessary, first of all, for you to become friends. I mean, for the young people.
Has it reformed enough now that is it legal or not to speak out, or is it legal already to speak out against things that they're doing in government now?
Надо сказать, что у нас и раньше высказывали мнение свое, а реформа зашла далеко, и перестройка, которая у нас началась, она, конечно, будет продолжаться.
Well, first of all, we should say that, there were people who also expressed their opinion before the perestroika and before the policy of glasnost. But of course, lately, more and more people express their opinion more easily, And, you see, the perestroika, the restructuring, is still going, and we're sure that it will go on.
Under Mr. Gorbachev's new governmental plan of bringing in U.S.
your speech, sorry. You asked about the clothing and...
About fashions and ideas of Western life, bringing it into the Soviet Union.
Well, frankly speaking, you know, if you had a chance to visit our country, let's say even, well, 10 years ago, 12 years ago, you would have seen many people who would wear jeans and who would wear T-shirts. Well, you know that, well, the sort of clothes you are wearing, well, has become quite an international. And if you go to Europe or to any other country in the world, you'll see similar clothes everywhere. And, well, probably you are talking about some definite clothing.
Well, not so much even clothing, just ideas.
As for the ideas.
Fashions of everything.
You are talking about the new ideas.
Yeah.
So you mean the ideas of restructuring, of perestroika? No? About what? What sort of ideas? About what?
Just about,
No. Yeah, please. I just want to understand it. See? I want to answer.
what?
Well, we've talked a lot about the last 2 to 3 years under your new leadership, and how there seems to be much more open of Soviet society, much more open concept, expression, and ideas and exchange with the West, predominantly the United States. While Russians eager, Soviets eager to see American things and ideas and things that maybe we consider or would be considered Soviet adventures. We hear many stories that there is not an emphasis on consumer goods, but on heavy industry. And I think the kids, we talked a lot last week on your unit or on the unit of the Soviet Union about your attitude towards consumer goods and that there is an effort now to increase the availability and variety of consumer goods. What kind of impact is this having on Soviet people?
Надо сказать, что, наверное, у них не очень правильное представление о свободе и о правах, которые у нас существовали и существуют. У нас практически нет никаких ограничений в передвижении, в свободе слова, в свободе высказывания своего мнения.
So first of all, we'd like to explain a little bit about the freedom and the freedom in terms of the USSR. Let's see. So we know we have no any sort of restrictions on traveling. For example, we can easily will go to any part, for example, of the Soviet Union, but also very many groups that traveled abroad even before 1985 as well, though not many, of course, visited the USA. And we also have many people who would express their opinion before. Now, of course, we have more people who would do that.
А трудности в экономическом развитии у нас были, и они сейчас есть. В частности, они выразились, конечно, в некоторой нехватке товаров народного потребления. Ну, это объясняется и тем, что нам приходилось постоянно обороняться с тех пор, как мы образовались. Объясняется еще и тем, что Россия была очень отсталой. Климатические условия у нас во много раз хуже, чем в Америке. И, естественно, развивать экономику, производить товары нам приходится труднее. И мы развивали тяжелую индустрию, чтобы не зависеть от других государств.
Well, as for the economic development of the country, then, of course, we had problems in that sphere. We're still having those problems. And, of course, we had such a situation when much more attention was paid to heavy industry than to consumer goods, for example. also not very good. They cannot be compared at all with the climate of the USA. And that's why it took much more efforts for us, to produce, let's say, the same amount of goods or production. That's why we had to develop our heavy industry first. And besides, we had to be independent in that way in the sphere of industry. So we paid more attention to the development of the heavy industry first of all. Yes, сейчас.
Да, надо еще сказать, что при всем при этом наши успехи науки и техники, они равнозначны и пускай, и космосу, и обороне, и направлениях экономики мы с ними на равных. Энергетические так и есть. Да, вот сказать. А вот теперь у нас уже появилась возможность средства направить на производство товаров нужно поступления строительства жилья и так далее. И такая программа у нас на 10-15 лет разработана. Мы о ней сказали. Сейчас ее выполняем.
Well, and nowadays, you see, we have more opportunities to concentrate our efforts on developing light industry, the industry which would produce consumer goods. But of course, it's not a matter of 1 year. And we try, to satisfy the needs of the people lately, and especially to construct more, for example, houses and more apartments for the people. Are so important. So this is one of the main factors in that sphere. Then, for example, the glasnost, also influenced our economy very much because, discussing the plans with the workers, electing, the directors of factories and plants, all this makes our industry more productive. Though, of course, it's just the beginning of that process, but still we can feel the efficiency of it. And it's also quite a good thing, not only for industry, for economy, but it's also a good thing for our culture, because, it's also clear that the culture must have different sides. And, for example, the more directions of the developments it have, the richer the culture. So you see, there are very many aspects, and of course it's quite a difficult question because it's very difficult to know even to mention all the aspects of that problem. Just these are the three main which has come into my mind right now.
У нас на предприятиях, если еще
There is a small adding.
более полно оформили про свободу на предприятиях. Они у нас тоже многотысячные, 50, 10, 5, 1300 человек. Есть советы трудовых коллективов. Если директор или администрация приняла решение, совет трудового коллектива может это активировать. Возможно ли у них
the Siberian rivers, which go to the north, to the south. Because in the south, we have some deserts there, and they wanted to cultivate those deserts, to irrigate those deserts. And, after quite a big, nationwide discussion, the decision was made to stop the project. Though already, big amounts of money has been spent on the projecting of that work. And so even, you see, the opinion of the majority of the people also played quite an important role in changing the decision of almost of the government. And they also asked the question, if it's possible, for example, in your country, that the order of management can be somehow abolished and neglected by the workers. Is it possible?
Tough.
Yes, it is.
Вот ваша свобода и наша.
Slava, I'll direct this towards you. You're an intelligent fellow. You know quite a bit about the United States, I can tell by our conversations. If you could visit the United States and select 3 or 4 of the most important places for you to see, what would they be? And if you could meet anyone in the United States, the 3 or 4 most significant people you'd like to meet, who would they be?
Well, that's a difficult question. It's so difficult to choose, 3 main places within the USA, because you have so many interesting places. Well, but to my mind, to get more or less objective picture of the country, though I don't think it is possible, during the visits only to the 3 places. They should be, first of all, quite different places, right? That would give an idea about different living standards, different climatic conditions. And, of course, it is necessary to visit both. Some towns, say, in the East Coast and in the West Coast. Well, New York being the biggest city of the USA, and of course I would have chosen it. Then one of the cities on the western coast. And you see, as soon as I've heard much about San Francisco, that probably I would have chosen this city. And then, it is also, to my mind, necessary to visit the capital of every country. Though we see, 3 is not enough, 4 at least. I need the 4th one, to see the countryside. Well, as for the people, then it's even more difficult. I usually would not choose the people. I prefer to meet as many people as possible. And only then anyone can get an idea about the people. 3 is not. I wouldn't even think about that.
If you know that the Chernobyl accident and everything was over there, well, was that a major setback in nuclear studies with that kind of energy and stuff? Was that just like a real total setback of your studies, or did you just go on from that and just try to correct your mistake?
Chernobyl?
No, yeah, Chernobyl.
Надо сказать, что аварии атомных nuclear power
yes, for the son, first of all, he wants to say that he's been to several schools in the USA already. And he's seen many good things here, by the way. And while coming back, he would try to introduce those things in the schools of his republic. Well, as for me, then this is my first visit. I can say that, of course, in comparison with our schools, you have both good things and some, to my mind, negative things as well. So, we have some aspects which are better in our country, for example. And then I'd like to answer already the question itself, so about the system of education. Well, speaking about the system of education, we have to take into consideration that it covers quite, a big period of time, starting from 1 year up to the time when the people graduate from colleges, which we call institutes. So the daycare centers and nursery schools are also included into that system. And quite recently, the Ministry of Education was reorganized into Committee in Education. And now, you see, all the units of the system of education are united, and somehow they are guided, they are directed by that committee. So, starting from first of all, when the kids reach, at that time, infants, when they become 1 year old, they can be taken to nursery schools and kindergarten and daycare centers. And usually, it's not a must, of course, for the parents to take them there. But lately, more and more parents prefer to do it because then they have more opportunities to work. And the infants can stay there for almost 12 hours a day, from 7 o'clock in the morning till 7 o'clock in the evening. So the parents can pick them up and take them home whenever they like, whenever they finish their work. Do you have a question about that? Yeah, please.
Well, so does that mean like the parents, the father and the mother work, all the father and the mother are working too? Like,
Well,
just father and the mother too?
Well, as a rule, both parents work, but again, it's up to them to choose what sort of job to choose, what sort of work to choose. And you know that usually, the working day in the Soviet Union cannot be longer than actually 8 hours a day. It's 40 working hours a week, same system. And, some of the parents, for example, some of the mothers would, work only half of the day, but then there will be half pay as well. But if they work the whole day, 8 hours, then they can take 2 in the evening of the return from work. As soon as many offices and industrial enterprises start their work at 7 o'clock in the morning or 8 o'clock in the morning, they have always time to pick up the European time before 7 o'clock in the evening. So starting, the nursery schools, the children are fed there. They're fed there 4 times a day. Times that, to sleep, and they're taken good care of by the doctors, available in every nursery school or daycare center. And also, but you know that the daycare centers and nursery schools are not free. See, the parents have to pay for them from, let's say, from $20 up to $38 per month in average. And it's not much, it's only 1/3 of all the expenses, because 2/3 are covered by the offices, plants, and factories where the parents work, by the state, to be more exact. And the families that have more than 3 children, they don't have to pay anything at all. You see, they're taking milk and tent, those things for free, nothing. Then at the age of 3, they are automatically transferred to kindergartens. And actually they have the same thing there. So the day of the same length, also 12 hours, starting from 7 o'clock in the evening till 7 o'clock from the morning to the evening. And also, 1975. And, well, the school year in schools starts on the 1st of September, and the school year will be over, finish somewhere in the end of May. Well, they will have 1 week vacation in autumn, 2 week vacation in winter, 1 week vacation in spring, and 3-month vacation in summer, all in all. Well, the classes, the school day starts at 9 o'clock in the morning, and as for junior grades, then they will have 4 classes a day, not more. So the length of 1 lesson is 45 minutes with an intervals of 15 and 20 minutes in between, with 1 big interval where 40 minutes interval as you have, for example, just to have lunch, yes. Then usually the children will be home somewhere by 1 o'clock or 1:30.
You don't know what that means, but at the end of the period, there's that tone sound, which means these young people have to get to their next class. So